Book 9, The Argument. Satan, having compassed the earth with meditated guile, returns as a mist by night into paradise, enters into the serpent sleeping. Adam and Eve in the morning go forth to their labors, which Eve proposes to divide in several places, each laboring apart. Adam consents not, alleging the danger lest the enemy of whom they were forewarned should attempt her found alone. Eve, loath to be thought not circumspect or firm enough, urges her going apart, the rather desirous to make trial of her strength. Adam at last yields. The serpent finds her alone, his subtle approach, first gazing, then speaking with much flattery, extolling Eve above all other creatures. Eve, wondering to hear the serpent speak, asks how he attained to human speech, and such understanding not till now. The serpent answers that by tasting of a certain tree in the garden he attained both to speech and reason, till then void of both. Eve requires him to bring her to that tree, and finds it to be the tree of knowledge forbidden. The serpent, now grown bolder, with many wiles and arguments induces her at length to eat. She, pleased with the taste, deliberates a while whether to impart thereof to Adam or not. At last brings him of the fruit, relates what persuaded her to eat thereof. Adam at first amazed, but perceiving her loss, resolves through vehemence of love to perish with her, and extenuating the trespass, eats also of the fruit. The effects thereof in them both, they seek to cover their nakedness, then fall to variance and accusation of one another. No more of talk, where God or angel guest with man, as with his friend familiar used to sit indulgent, and with him partake rural repast, permitting him the while venial discourse unblamed. I now must change those notes to tragic. Foul distrust and breach disloyal on the part of man, revolt and disobedience on the part of heaven now alienated, distance and distaste, anger and just rebuke and judgment given, that brought into this world a world of woe, sin and her shadow death, and misery death's harbinger. Sad task, yet argument not less but more heroic than the wrath of stern Achilles on his foe pursued, thrice fugitive about Troy wall, or rage of Turnus for Lavinia disespoused, or Neptune's ire, or Juno's, that so long perplexed the Greek, and Cytherea's son. If answerable style I can obtain of my celestial patroness, who deigns her nightly visitation unimplored, and dictates to me slumbering, or inspires easy my unpremeditated verse, since first this subject for heroic song pleased me long choosing, and beginning late. Not sedulous by nature to indite wars, hitherto the only argument heroic deemed chief mastery to dissect with long and tedious havoc, fabled knights in battles feigned, the better fortitude of patience, and heroic martyrdom unsung. Or to describe races and games, or tilting furniture, emblazoned shield, impresses quaint, caparisons and steeds, bases and tinsel trappings, gorgeous knights at joust and tournament, then marshalled feast served up in hall with sewers and seneschals. The skill of artifice or office mean, not that which justly gives heroic name, to person or to poem. Me of these, nor skilled, nor studious, higher argument remains, sufficient of itself to raise that name, unless an age too late, or cold climate, or years damp my intended wing. Depressed, and much they may, if all be mine, not hers, who brings it nightly to my ear. The sun was sunk, and after him the star of Hesperus, whose office is to bring twilight upon the earth, short arbiter twixt day and night, and now from end to end night's hemisphere had veiled the horizon round, when Satan, who late fled before the threats of Gabriel out of Eden, now improved in meditated fraud and malice bent on man's destruction, meagre what might hap, of heavier on himself, fearless returned, by night he fled, and at midnight returned. From compassing the earth, cautious of day, since Uriel, regent of the sun, descried his entrance, and forewarned the cherubim that kept their watch. Thence full of anguish driven, the space of 7 continued nights he rode. With darkness, thrice the equinoctial line, he circled 4 times, crossed the car of night, from pole to pole, traversing each colure. On the 8th returned, and on the coast averse, from entrance or cherubic watch, by stealth found unsuspected way. There was a place now not, though sin, not time, first wrought the change, where Tigris at the foot of paradise into a gulf shot underground, till part rose up a fountain by the tree of life, and with the river sunk, and with it rose Satan, involved in rising mist, then sought where to lie hid. Sea he had searched, and land from Eden over Pontus and the pool Maeotis, up beyond the river Ob, downward as far as Antarctic, and in length west from Orontes to the ocean barred at Darien. thence to the land where flows Ganges and Indus. Thus the orb he roamed, with narrow search and with inspection deep, considered every creature which of all most opportune might serve his wiles, and found the serpent subtlest beast of all the field. Him, after long debate irresolute, of thoughts revolved, his final sentence chose, fit vessel, fittest imp of fraud, in whom to enter, and his dark suggestions hid from sharpest sight. For in the wily snake, whatever slights none would suspicious mark, as from his wit and native subtlety, proceeding which in other beasts observed, doubt might beget of diabolic power, active within beyond the sense of brute. Thus he resolved, but first from inward grief his bursting passion into plaints thus poured. O earth, how like to heaven, if not preferred more justly, seat worthier of gods, as built with second thoughts, reforming what was old, for what god after better worse would build, terrestrial heaven, danced round by other heavens that shine, yet bear their bright officious lamps, light above light for thee alone as seems in thee, concentring all their precious beams of sacred influence. As God in heaven is center, it extends to all, so thou centering receivest from all those orbs in thee, not in themselves, and all their known virtue appears productive in herb, plant, and nobler birth of creatures animate with gradual life, of growth, sense, reason, all summed up in man. With what delight could I have walked thee round, if I could joy in aught sweet interchange of hill and valley, rivers, woods, and plains, now land, now sea, and shores, with forest crowned, rocks, dens, and caves, but I in none of these find place or refuge, and the more I see pleasures about me, so much more I feel torment within me, as from the hateful siege of contraries. All good to me becomes bane, and in heaven much worse would be my state. But neither here seek I, no nor in heaven, to dwell unless by mastering heaven supreme, nor hope to be myself less miserable, by what I seek, but others to make such as I, though thereby worse to me redound. For only in destroying I find ease to my relentless thoughts, and him destroyed, or one, to what may work his utter loss. For whom all this was made, all this will soon follow, as to him linked in weal or woe. In woe, then, that destruction wide may range. To me shall be the glory sole among the infernal powers, in one day to have marred what he Almighty styled 6 nights and days continued making, and who knows how long before had been contriving, though perhaps not longer than since I in one night freed from servitude inglorious well nigh half the angelic name, and thinner left the throng of his adorers, he to be avenged, and to repair his number thus impaired, whether such virtue spent of old now failed, more angels to create, if they at least are his created, or to spite us more, determined to advance into our room, a creature formed of earth, and him endow exalted from so base original with heavenly spoils, our spoils. What he decreed, he effected. Man he made, and for him built magnificent this world, and earth his seat. Him Lord pronounce, and oh, indignity! Subjected to his service angel wings, and flaming ministers to watch and tend their earthly charge. Of these the vigilance I dread, and to elude thus wrapped in mist of midnight vapor glide. Obscure, and pry in every bush and brake, where hap may find the serpent sleeping, in whose mazy folds to hide me, and the dark intent I bring. O foul descent, that I, who erst contented with gods to sit the highest, am now constrained into a beast and mixed with bestial slime. This essence to incarnate an imbrute, that to the height of deity aspired, but what will not ambition and revenge descend to? Who aspires must down as low as high he soared, obnoxious first or last to basest things. Revenge, at first though sweet, bitter ere long, back on itself recoils. Let it, I reck not. So it light well aimed, since higher I fall short on him who next provokes my envy, this new favorite of heaven, this man of clay, son of despite, whom us the more to spite his maker raised from dust. Spite, then, with spite his best repaid. So sang, through each thicket, dank or dry, like a black mist low creeping, he held on his midnight search, where soonest he might find the serpent. Him fast sleeping soon he found, in labyrinth of many a round self-rolled, his head the midst, well stored with subtle wiles, not yet in horrid shade or dismal den, nor nocent yet, but on the grassy herb, fearless, unfeared, he slept. In at his mouth the devil entered, and his brutal sense, in heart or head possessing, soon inspired, with act intelligential, but his sleep disturbed not, waiting close the approach of morn. Now when as sacred light began to dawn in Eden on the humid flowers that breathed their morning incense, when all things that breathe from the earth's great altar send up silent praise to the Creator, and his nostrils fill with grateful smell, forth came the human pair, and joined their vocal worship to the choir of creatures wanting voice. That done, partake the season, prime for sweetest scents and airs, then commune how that day they best may ply their growing work, for much their work outgrew the hand's dispatch of two gardening so wide. And Eve first to her husband thus began. Adam, well may we labor, still to dress this garden, still to tend plant, herb, and flower, our pleasant task enjoined, but till more hands aid us, the work under our labor grows luxurious by restraint. What we by day lop overgrown, or prune, or prop, or bind, one night or two with wanton growth derides, tending to wild. Thou therefore now advise, or hear what to my mind first thoughts present. Let us divide our labors. Thou where choice leads thee, or where most needs, whether to wind the woodbine round this arbor, or direct the clasping ivy where to climb, while I in yonder spring of roses intermixed with myrtle find what to redress till noon. For while so near each other thus all day our task we choose, what wonder if so near looks intervene and smiles, or object new, casual discourse draw on, which intermits our day's work brought to little, though begun early, and the hour of supper comes unearned.